Yeah,
Hi.
yeah. We haven't been here much because both of us have been working and both of us have been busy. And but in the meantime, in the background, we've been doing a lot of like chatting and stuff and making notes on different subjects that we've been discussing. And anyway, I'm just going to start with going through stuff. So what we're basing today's show on is the title, It's an Insight Job. So where we wanted to start, where we talked about starting, was that last week the North Node shifted into Aries, and we were talking about the implications of that happening and what that means for people being born into this time, but it also has an influence on the collective energy overall. And I'm going to pass you over to Ginger, who's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, Aries is all about the mind. And so, what I think we're going to see is a very strong willed um, collective surface from this shifting. And we're really going to notice the crown chakra. And we're going to notice things like more leaders stepping forward, people who haven't been leading. And at the same time, I don't think that this is a time for us to be following. I think it's important for the strongest among us to stand up and say, look, there's other ways of doing this, and maybe demonstrating some of these other methods. And I think that's what we're going to witness with Aries. I think it's a very creative force of energy. To me, it represents springtime. It's a force that these flowers come back year after year in Canada, where we see their determination. And it's like the Aries energy. And this is what we're going to be experiencing for the next little while. And it's all crown chakra. So it's important for us to keep our mind healthy, for us to keep our focused attention on what we do want. We want to imagine rising up through the frozen soil to live an abundant and beautiful life. We really are wise to keep our attention on the task at hand because we can use that Mars energy. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is known to be the planet of war. I prefer to call it the planet of action. It initiates us. It's what begins. It's the beginning. It's the springtime. It's the start of it all. It's the thinking. It's what are we thinking? What are we creating? It's an insight job. Like you said, Kim, what's the story that we're running? How are we doing with our storytelling? We've been talking about this for a long time. So, what's the script that we're running? How are we going to do that? Where is it going to release? In the South Node. I'll go on for a minute. Do you have any questions so far? Because I could just keep going.
No, just keep
Um,
going. It's good.
the nodes to me are electrical, and it's where the energy releases. And so we have these two release points right now: Aries, where it's initiating, and Libra, where it releases. Libra to me represents justice, it represents that balancing, it represents on the human, it represents the hips. So for people who have strong Aries Libra placement, if you're not trying to walk a more balanced life and be more in the middle path with both of these very strong energies, then I think that things can be quite chaotic and can really express themselves in the mind and in the hip area. And, people might be experiencing symptoms of like sciatic and that type of thing, so it's important for us to be really careful about how we express that energy because again the electrical nodes, the north and south nodes that we're in right now, this is where those energies are going to be released. So it's important for us to learn to manage these energies in a really healthy way. And the Aries knows exactly what they want, and they have a strong vision. This the I am statement for Aries is simply that I am, and it is whatever we decide we are. Are we just going to keep doing what we've always done, or are we going to create something that we've never imagined until now? What
Now's
will
the
we
time
do
to
with all that?
create it.
That's right, with all that Mars energy. Take
Yeah,
action. It's not a
yeah.
time to be idle.
And
We're in the
and
chariot.
and also it's you're thinking about Mars and the god of war. and you think it's not the time to sit back and allow yourself to be bullied. It's the time to stand up and be in your own power and walk your talk. So I was telling you that I've been my sister runs a yoga teachers school in Scotland, and I've been watching some of her videos. I've been doing some of her yoga, and how she was finishing the session, which I'm sure is a very very common Tai Chi yoga maneuver. Um, but I'm going to take my gloves off to show you because it'll probably be clearer because I'm freezing here. That's why I've got gloves on. So the way she's finishing the sessions is that she's taking the right hand and making a fist out of it. And then she's placing the left hand over the top of it and taking a bow and saying that this symbolizes, the fist symbolizes you being in your own power. The fist symbolizes the strength and you being in your own power. The left hand covering it implies that you're taking your own power and being in it. And then the bow sort of symbolizes in grace, I suppose, in you're taking your own power, but in grace. And I really like it. It's like
I like it
really
too. Very powerful.
a really
When we
powerful
were when you were
message.
showing me, I was lit up. It felt
Yeah.
really
It
powerful.
felt really good when I saw it, and I thought, well, that's really cool. So, and with all of these things, she's probably been doing it for years, but I'd never noticed it before.
You weren't in that space. You weren't ready.
Yeah,
And but
yeah.
it's brilliant. You know, yoga is a brilliant tool for allowing us to focus our energy on one thing at a time. It helps us to take a deep breath. And, you know, I noticed for me, tree pose was quite a challenge until I learned to look at one thing at a time,
Mm,
not let my eyes and my imagination drift in so many directions at once, but to focus on one thing.
yeah.
And I couldn't help but notice how strong and steady my body was because we are electric and we're vibrating. And
Okay.
when we have too much electricity stored, we're likely going to become a little erratic.
So, just a little bit more about this. Sorry, North Node. The shift into the North Node. So it brings through a sense of power, self power. It brings through. So it's like, and it lasts for, well, this particular sign in the North Node lasts for 18 months. So it brings through with it, and this is a collective thing, but it brings through with it an energy of us being in our own power. Plus, it brings through with it those children born into this for the next 18 months will be empowered little individuals. There'll be
That'll be
people,
their ascendant.
that'll
The
be that,
Aries ascendants will be
right.
born over the next 18 months.
So they're going to be powerful little people. And
Also, all of the eclipses over the next 18 months, like you may notice by looking back, all of the eclipses over the past 18 months have been between Taurus and Scorpio.
uh,
So this is the cycle. Its eclipses bring about change. And, you know, I believe that the eclipses express themselves where the energy needs to be changed.
so can you talk a little bit about the South Node in Scorpio? Can you talk a little bit about that?
To me, the South Node in Scorpio was about hidden sexual energy. And it's about the sex organs on the human body anatomically. So it is how we express ourselves sexually over the last couple of years. And I think a lot has come to surface for people sexually in terms of how do they want to how do they want to enjoy it? Do they want to enjoy it? You know, who the heck am I? You know, so I do think our sexuality has been in question over the last couple of years. And to me, Scorpio represents all of what's hidden. It's the parts that we keep in the dark and we don't really talk about it. You know, it's what's hidden. And astrologically, it's the eighth house. So it's the house of endings and death, which I kind of disagree with because without sex, we wouldn't have birth. And so it's a bit, you know, astrology, I'll always say, is a bit convoluted. It's like any other language. Who created it? Yeah. To me, it's just an interpretation of the energies that we experience over and over again. We are the energy, though. And now, as we become aware of that, so the North Node over the last 18 months has been in Taurus. we've been looking closely at our financial systems. And so now we've moved beyond the Taurus energy. And, we saw the submersible go down and it imploded. And that to me was a representation of our financial systems shifting yet again. And of course they are. All this shifting energy that we're experiencing right now, it doesn't go missed. And
You know,
it's a
the
strong indication of change.
thought I had this morning was, and I always forget this, just like I constantly always forget that when I'm projecting something, it's actually an inside job. So
Correct.
I always imagine it happening on the world stage, and it doesn't. It actually happens inside of me, and I always forget that. But by the same token, I have this overwhelming feeling that everything is a lie. Everything that is being projected onto us is an illusion, and
Correct.
that this idea of this financially collapsing financial system and what have you, I think it's smoke and mirrors. I mean, a lot of people have sort of like out there kind of talking to me and saying, oh, yeah, I wish they'd bring it on, like I'm really ready for this to happen. And I think, wow, to me, it's more like a mirage. It's more like a pretense. It's more like a game to bring on the energies of that fear of us fearing that happening. But actually, it's a complete and absolute lie because I'm not even sure that they have the power to bring that about in the way that it's been described. And I don't even know there's a necessity for me to go into describing what that would actually mean. I don't know whether anybody's ever actually thought about it or whether anybody's ever actually read anything about it.
Well, I think that's why I became a homesteader because I could protect, some really big problems ahead. And as the financial system and the pharmaceutical system, education system, all these schemes that we've agreed to and we've consented to and supported in these lifetimes that we've had, um, we now remember, wait, we didn't actually put this together as a collective. We were sort of subjected to these ideals and these fake stories that we now call his story. It's not true. We can see that at least. It's not provable. And it's just yet one more theory that we've agreed upon. How can we? When the evidence is so weak, they say the devil's in the details. Well, if you look closely for the details, you won't find enough detail to support their theories. So these official stories that we've had to study and memorize and regurgitate, through these education systems and schemes that help to deteriorate the family, in my opinion. And yeah, I just don't see anything good coming out of us continuing in the old path. Now, I do see the financial system has already shifted personally.
Yep.
And I
Oh,
think
it
that,
has. It has.
as we became aware of all that, I think we subsequently started to shift too. Some, at first it was just very few people and then more and then more. And we saw waves and waves of people waking up, if you will, to the reality of the world that we're in. But we continue to use our plastic, and as long as we use a plastic currency, we've already collapsed the system that we used to use. It's no longer, it's not real. It's just, it's all digital and it's
But
easily controlled.
the better off anybody is because the more capable they are of sustaining what they need to sustain throughout whatever it is that they're experiencing, the less that they're giving their power away, the more that they're in their power in relation to supplying what they need, then the less scary the idea is. And it's all about being more responsible, really. It's all about taking that responsibility.
Mhm.
Um, like I don't know how many of you are aware of how much of what you're eating now doesn't come out of packets. And this might just be a personal shift for me. I don't know. But I mean, with you, are you now eating very minimal amount of things in packets, and the vast majority of what you eat's actually different, like bought at the market or grown
I
or
really do question what is the value? Is there any value in this? Why am I eating this? Is it habitual? Is it, is it beneficial? Is this
yeah,
right for me?
yeah.
You know, I allow myself, I don't deny myself anything. I'm not afraid of food. Let's put it that way. I've
Yeah,
moved beyond that, and I'm just making wiser choices.
agree, agree. So, having said all of that, right, I've got all these notes and they're all over the place. So,
Well, I do like that,
so
we've talked about this being an inside job because it is. And yeah, I guess we'll see how these nodes express themselves over the 18 months. But I do think that we're about to see a lot of justice and a lot of, like I say, a lot of leaders come forward, a lot of people wanting to lead new directions and new ideas and new initiatives, and maybe some of the old. And so we'll have to watch for what feels right to us, the same as the food.
right. So what you said the other day, this is quoting Ginger here, she said, I'm not gonna shut up because I feel as if we're casting spells. I feel because I feel free and as if we are casting spells. And we talked again about something that we talked a little bit about before. And that was, I'm going to bring up a thing to type this so you can see in 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 front of me on the screen. So I'm going to share my screen in a second. Maximize that. Sorry, don't listen to me rabbling, but right, I'm going to share my screen now. So share it. And what Ginger said is this, which I think is really, really, really clever. And I have talked about this before. But what she was talking about is the word, sorry, the sword and the stone. So the sword in the stone, right? And if you take the S's off the fronts of those two words, sword and stone, you end up with the word in the tone. Now, we're talking about the legend of King Arthur and how the legend of King Arthur specifically was Arthur, King Arthur himself, when he was a young man. The whole village was aware that the king would become the person that could pull the sword from the stone. So all of these individuals are stepping forward and trying to like get this stone out, get this sword out the stone, and King Arthur comes riding in. Oh, no, he's not King Arthur at that time. He's just a young man, but he comes right. This is the traditional legend. He comes riding at the village, steps off his horse, says, "Oh, what are all these people doing?" Goes up and pulls the sword out of the stone. So, so basically, in an analogy or in a nutshell, what we're talking about here is somebody who has got no previous knowledge of what's going on here. All these people in the crowd obviously know that they're not going to be able to pull that stone out because they're not the king, or they haven't got enough faith in themselves to think that they're the king. And King Arthur comes in, unbeknownst to everything, doesn't know anything that's going on, comes in and pulls the sword out the stone. So, what the analogy or the what's the word for the meaning behind it? What the analogy of the story is? It's the word and the tone. It's it's inside of you. It's that belief inside of you that you could be king, but it doesn't come from people inputting information and clouding your vision and all the rest of it. It comes from the inside of not even allowing that noise from the outside to penetrate your being. So you're an empowered individual from what's inside of you. So you're coming in your own horse, you're getting off your horse, you're walking into the village and you're pulling the sword out because you haven't got that noise or you haven't allowed that noise to interfere with who you are. Am I
Well, and
right?
nobody told this individual that they could not remove the sword. It was a common belief in the village that the sword would never be removed and it could only be removed. And they created this story and this energy around the sword. And lo and behold, it stayed stuck. It would not come out. No matter who tried, it wouldn't come out. This young lad comes up, doesn't know the folklore, sees the sword, needs the sword, takes the sword without another thought, doesn't know that he can't. Nobody's told him he couldn't, so he just did it. But the
Which
moment we start telling ourselves we can't, then we take away the possibility that we can.
And
And I do think that we're limitless and we can create far more than we've yet to imagine.
you're a really big one in pulling us up when we and I am too actually, in relation to the words, being aware of the words that we're speaking, because it's the word and the tone, it's what we're creating. We're verbalizing stuff on a daily basis and we're bringing that stuff into being. So just be mindful of the words that you're using. And if you're using negative words all the time or you're complaining all the time, then stop doing it because it's not helping you.
No, and it's what will grow. We'll grow more of that, more beliefs that we can't pull the sword out of the stone. And I do think the word and the tone is important. Speak to yourself as though you have, a child in your care. Be very gentle and kind and because I think that yeah, baby is on board. The the,
You're,
the smallest part of who we are is still there and still needs to be loved and cared for. So
so,
that's our task is to
and,
learn to speak kindly to ourselves.
and cover your ears if you don't like swearing because be unfuckable with. Which I really, really
Yeah,
like that term.
it's about being authentic and becoming unfuckwithable because
That's right.
you've set your
Unfuckwithable.
boundaries and your boundaries are your boundaries and anything outside of your comfort zone, well, it just won't do. And I do think that we're going to see that type of leadership in the future as and I think that we already are. People have very strong boundaries about what's right and what's not right for them at this time. And some people are still masked and hidden and hoping that things will go back to the way that they were. And nature just doesn't work like that. We're moving forward. We've already done it. So it's really what will we create? What's the best possible outcome for ourselves? What path could we be on? Instead of what we've always done, which is like we've talked about. Now, oftentimes we focus on what we don't want. We focus on the fact that everybody says you can't get that sword out of the stone. Well, who cares what everybody else thinks? Go and
Yeah,
get the sword out of the stone,
yeah. I gotta, I
and
mean, everything that we talk about, I gotta implement everything we talk about, I've got to actually implement in my own life.
yes,
We all have
well,
to.
it's work, right? And it's about whether or not you want to embrace it. Because I think when you do, you start to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And this is one of the reasons why I won't shut up and I call it freedom, because I think that when you set those boundaries and you really decide to own your comfort zone, what am I responsible for? Well, I'm only responsible for me. I cannot be there. I cannot be the one to make decisions for other people. I cannot control, change, and I did not cause a lot of what's going on in the world, but I can mitigate it. I can try to be more of a balancing force of energy, that how it expresses itself, Libra. But at the same time, the Libra can be known to be far too passive. And it's important at this time for the Libra to be quite balanced as these strong Aries energies are being sent to it. Also, I want to say, Kim, I've said to you before, I think it was great that you changed the name of your channel, although I do like the Bard because I do see you as a really beautiful Bard
Thank you.
and a wonderful storyteller. And but I like your channel name, and I think it sort of really speaks to me at this time with those nodes.
You
So
know,
it's a
I'll
me
just
Aries to
show
a
you
we
something.
Libra, me
It's
we energy.
the reason that we did me and we is it actually is reflective, like it's a mirror between the word.
Yeah.
That's the reason it was called we me, is this is reflective energy. So I reflect you, you reflect me, we bounce off each other. And in relation to my channel and the little I'll just go on to here and show you in relation to my little logo, the logo I made myself, but you probably know that because it's kind of like I'll just see if I can bring it
Well,
back
I
to
think
something.
me
That
we represents
that
Aries
one.
Libra at
But
this
it
time. It's a real strong me we energy
and it was a
that we're in
pool.
at this moment.
It was a
Very
pool
cool.
with ripples. So it was symbolic of the reflection aspect and all is reflection, and that it's about recognizing self-responsibility and recognizing that the ripples we put out when we use the word in the tone or we use an action, that has a ripple effect. That that's the reason that we need to be mindful and we need to be responsible, is that fall is reflection.
and hold
for
space for the
everyone.
best possible outcome. Sometimes we don't know what that is, but even if you can just hold that thought, and know that the best possible outcome is already on its way.
So that I did a video the other day on this, which is,
Speaking of ripples, look at that.
I mean, that I live on an island, so I'm used to looking at the waves on the sea. And for those to be that perfectly spaced is very, 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 very unusual.
It looks so unnatural.
Um, and that was, sorry, hold on. Ah, I got lost there. Hold on.
Ah,
I got it. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is not related, but it's actually Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And there's been all this talk about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs coming out, this new movie of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and the fact that they're not seven dwarfs, they're seven minority, I don't know, like they're not dwarfs at all. They're minority um, races of people.
I would say like archetypes.
Archetypes, right? Okay. But the thing that I wanted to talk to about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, we've got the mirror playing a predominant role. And the mirror in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is supposed to represent the scrying mirror. So the scrying mirror is again all that is reflection. It's this overall story about the mirror. That's the story of our world. And then in the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, you've also got the story of her biting the apple and the apple being poisonous and her going into a deep sleep. So we were having this chat about this the other day, and I'm going, that's really interesting if you look at the apple symbolism of the Apple computer and the bite out of it. And then the story goes on that it takes you into a deep sleeping state. So in relation to just, and I'm just talking about my observation of the difference between an Apple device and an Android device, is that say you've got an Android phone or an Apple phone. So the vast majority of things on an Apple phone you have to pay for, like downloading music, making up music lists and what have you. It all goes into Apple, and you pay for all those tunes to put it into your Apple system. Whereas on an Android device, it's a freer system because it doesn't have that limitation in relation to you having to pay for it. And I'm not saying either way is particularly good or bad. It's up to the individual to choose whether they want to pay for their music or they don't want to pay for their music. But it's just music is just one example of how the Apple system is a lot more orientated towards the merchandising or the selling or the promoting through money of the different systems, and the Android system is more orientated towards the free way of doing things. The you've got that option, you can either pay for it or you can not pay for it, and it
Well, in this realm, there has to be opposition. The Big Apple comes to mind too, where we've got what Wall Street and
yeah, yeah, and the
again,
bite,
walls to me sort of represent division. So
yeah,
opposition.
and the bite out of the apple and the fact that the apple is poisonous, the fact that and it, the apple puts you into a sleeping state. I just think that that's really, there's a lot of symbology in that concept, especially of the relaunching of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and the fact that all of these aspects or these archetypes are actually telling you this is putting you into a sleeping state or narrowing your path. So you focus down on just one thing at any given one time, um, which I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I would like to say one thing as well, which is um, years ago I was right into Ian Lungold and the Mayan stuff. And Ian Lungold used to stand up and say in his conferences that there would come towards that there was a quickening happening. And the
Hmm.
quickening in description is like things happening faster, things coming around faster, these opportunities for us to learn stuff happens faster and faster and faster. But he also said with the quickening, and he's talking in this conference to maybe a couple of hundred people, and saying, um, in his opinion, we would come to a time where almost everything we were doing, there's either a way to not pay for it or a way to pay for it. And they're going, really? And he's going, yeah. He's going, well, like music, for instance. We'll take music, for instance. And he says, in 20 years' time, we won't need to pay for music. And they're all going, really? Like, how would that come about? Because at that time, the only way that you could listen to music was but by buying the CD.
But
Um,
maybe we just get back to making music because we're passionate about making music and not because we want to sell CDs. You know, maybe there's a different type of music that we've yet to create.
well, I don't know about you, but I mean, I don't listen to music anymore. I
I
just
don't
don't.
either. I don't think a lot of people I know do. So I feel like we're at a creation point. We've seen all of this come to a full stop. You know, I'm surprised that people are paying for that. You know, some of what they're seeing, have they looked at the videos? I'd have to wonder. You know, the symbology in these videos is a little alarming at times. Some of what they're showing us and the lyrics, well, you know, we're not really paying attention. You might be in the beat, but you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Even today, walking to a supermarket and it astounds me when I had was in the supermarket listening to this song and I hadn't heard this song for donkey's years, right? And what the song was I'm a long-haired lover from Liverpool. And I'm okay with wearing a mask or something. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, really?
Why is that in your pop-up world, Kim?
Why is that in my pop-up? Was really weird. All right. So I'm gonna shift subjects again. Um, and now I want to talk about you. You and I have we've debated this privately, but we've never debated this openly.
Let's do
And
it.
all right, so what I'm talking about here is I'd heard many years ago that Zeus, Jupiter, lost this world to Saturn. And that when Zeus lost this world to Saturn, he cursed mankind with two things. And the two things that he cursed mankind with was expectation and hope. So from my mind or my mindset, for a lot of years, I had put expectation to bed. And I can describe the scenario that came up where I originally put expectation to bed. So I'm not complaining about this because I've certainly made peace with it and I've learned a lot from it. But the scenario was I'd been off traveling around the world. I was very young. I was only in my late teens or early 20s. I'd been off traveling the world for a couple of years with a backpack. And I came back to the UK and I called my parents to let them know when I was arriving. And I arrived at Heathrow Airport and they never turned up to pick me up. I'm talking about, I mean, this is like in the early 80s. And I had an expectation that they would pick me up because they'd said they would pick me up, but they just didn't turn up. I've been gone for
Mhm.
2 years. And I'm like, I sat in that airport for 5 hours waiting for them to come and get me. I had nowhere else to
Well,
go.
that's quite a reasonable expectation, truth be told, that you would catch a ride on your way home after such a long absence.
Yeah. And I was only
You
young.
know, especially because like you said, because you're only young and it had been a couple of years and you had communicated this with them, so it's a reasonable expectation. You must have been a little worried, you know, where the heck were they? And, you know, so I can see why the word might be a bit of a trigger
So
because
I
it was a
learned
reasonable expectation though.
yeah, but I learned with that never to have any, or it was a point where I learned how to not have an expectation of other people. So with that, what it actually took me is into a world whereby I made peace with it not happening prior to committing myself to expecting it. So, for instance, if I wanted to lend somebody, if you came to me and said, "Can you lend me £100 or dollars? Can you lend me 100 Canadian dollars, Kim?" And in my mind, I would think, well, A, can I afford to completely lose that 100 Canadian dollars? Is losing that money worth falling out with you over? Would I fall out with you over if you didn't return it to me?
Hmm.
And therefore, if I lend you the money anyway, because I'm okay with actually losing it, but I don't tell you that, I just lend you the $100, but I'm actually okay at the point of lending it to you of not getting it back
Hmm.
because I'm not gonna, I'm gonna say to you when I lend it to you, right? I'm lending you $100. I would like it back at some point where you could afford to pay it to me back. Um, I wouldn't mention the fact that I don't have any expectation on you returning it to me. I might remind you of it a couple of times in the period of the next few months, but I'm certainly going to make peace from that expectation before I even enter into the transaction with you. And the other thing, in order to protect myself with boundaries, I might say, right, well, I'm lending you this $100, but I'm not ever going to lend you any more money until you pay that $100 back. So, but I'm trying to alleviate myself of the expectation before I even start. Maybe not a very good example, but do you get what I mean?
I do, and I think that it is a word that, I can see why they would say that about expectation and hope. I think that they're both weak, and I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it is the energy of that expectation that manifests from my point of view. And one of the reasons I say that is because the word expecting, 9 months gestation, we're expecting a baby. And what happens there is that we manifest another living being after 9 months. Interesting, 9 months, and then these north nodes sit for 18 months. It's like we're birthing, the dual energies. It's like one after the other. It's like a one birth and then another, and 2 9 month gestation periods almost. That sort of jumped at me. But yeah, the word expecting denotes maternity, and that we're in a state of creation, and so it is that state of expecting a parcel, expecting a baby that we tend to receive the parcel or we receive the baby, and that's I think I get where the statement makes a lot of sense about hope. It's not enough to hope. We have to take action. We can imagine the best possible outcome. Hoping is, I think, kind of weak. And I think it's way more powerful for us to actually visualize the outcome that is the best possible in each scenario, and then that then becomes our expectation, if you will, because we walk as though we've already got it. Like we've talked about that so many times. It's about standing in the power of knowing that it's already done.
But
And
also, you actually pointed out to me that expectation was part of the process of manifestation
yes,
because without the expectation that you're actually going to bring that about, and I mean, you can call it whatever you like, but what's the point in manifesting something without an expectation?
why wouldn't you do it? Why would you do it? If you don't
And
expect to be paid for a job, why would you do the job? If you don't expect to receive satisfaction over redecorating your home, why are you doing it?
yeah,
So there is an underlying expectation that this is the path I'm supposed to be on. This feels right to me. I expect this to work out. This is the path I should be taking,
okay.
you know,
And then hope, on the other hand,
feels weak.
I agree. I mean, I hope that this is going to come out okay. It's just like this feeling of like,
I don't
oh,
have to do anything because I'm hoping.
Yeah, it is weak. I agree. So, curse, hope is a curse. I mean, to give somebody hope. mm, Um, I don't know. Again, I think I got rid of hope a long time ago, and I transmuted hope into um taking action,
Yes, and power and creating powerful stories.
creating
You know,
powerful
what if it all
stories.
works out? You know, we don't think like that. And the more energy we give to thinking like that, the more likely we will see it all work out. And the sooner we see it all work out, because the sooner, like, I don't know, Kim, I was chatting with somebody the other day. They couldn't remember what it was they were going to say. I said, let it go. And the whole chat, I noticed that they were like a good part of the chat, they were looking up and to the right. And I can tell when they were channeling and visiting with spirit because they're quite psychic. And then I noticed when they were stuck on the word, there was an interruption and the channel was sort of disconnected and uh and they couldn't remember the word. And I kept saying, let it go. You know it'll come back. Just know that if it's supposed to come back, it'll flow back. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. And they really got stuck in the left brain, searching for that word. I said, you won't find it there. You have to let it go and allow it to flow back because the more we try to find it, the harder it becomes to find, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Oh,
The moment she started talking about something else and got back into the flow of
then
channeling,
it just comes to her.
it came directly back.
Yeah.
And so it's just about allowing. We
Yeah.
can't force. We can't force our government. You know, who are these people anyway? It's a theater. We can't force. We have to create. We have to be smarter than that. To me, it is all about creation, and especially in this 7 year, find it interesting that the seven dwarfs are coming out this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's no mistake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. There was something else. Did I just cut you off?
No, not at
Oh,
all.
okay. So there was something else I wanted to share with you, and I just stopped sharing, but I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to share the sound for this because this blew me away. This is titled Quantum Theory is a Lie. And it's a little video. It came through on my feed, so it's not actually part of it's not YouTube. There's no link I can give you for it, but I'll look up the guy's name and see if I can find it later and see if I can link it below in some way. So I'm going to share the screen this time, and this time I'm going to share the sound as well to show you this little video. Whoops, whoops, what's that? What happened there? No, up there. There you are. Share sound there. Right. So it's this.
Nobody is ready for this one. This probably looks familiar. It probably looks like these cymatic patterns that I talk about all the fucking time. And all these things is a petri dish on top of a speaker and a light on top of it, making these cool mandala-like patterns. Now this man made one of them in a 3D design software and took cross sections of it and put different colors to those cross sections. So using a 3D cymatic pattern, this man was able to create a perfect image using sound and light. I want you to sit and really think about this because this is the code to reality. This is the code to the matrix or whatever you want to call it. This is how energy interacts with itself to create everything that you see. This is why cymatics and sound is so important. Vibration in general. It's all waves. And that's how we make
The
sense.
Taurus, the Taurus Guild.
So that is Bass Forge. And as I said, I'll give you a description or a link to that below. 1 second, I'll just stop sharing.
Really cool work.
How did I do that? No, it did stop sharing. Oh, that's weird.
Now
So
try to imagine that you can focus your energy, your attention, your sound. Try to imagine that you can put all your vibration on the thought of being healthy, wealthy, full of light, full of comfort and ease, and these big high value words that we don't tend to use enough of.
So I've got this friend of mine called Pete, who Ginger and I had a big conversation with him the other night. And at some stage, I'm going to try and get him to come on.
It was
Uh,
fun. I hope to do that.
but he's been doing a lot of work with sound frequencies and um, the adjustment of the bandwidth of the frequency, adjustment of the hertz, and hertz being a very, very interesting word when you think about frequency, because how
And
much
beats.
beats, beating and hurting. I mean, like, what the hell?
What are they doing?
What what are we doing to ourselves with hurts and beats? And he was trying to make this channel, this healing channel of color, combining color and beats with at a particular hertz in order to heal a particular, and then heal is another word because it's the heel is part of the soul of the foot, and the soul is one word, so the heel is part of the soul. So he was doing healing based upon color, strobing color at the screen, and then having a sound beat, uh, uh, rotating, not rotating, it's not a word, repeating sound, repeating over and over and over and over and over again with a strobing color in order to bring about healing in the person. And he'd been working with this, which I thought was really interesting.
I do too. I think it is very interesting. In
But
fact, you're reminding me of a vet appointment that one of my dogs had a while back. They were having some pain, and the vet recommended some light therapy, laser light therapy, and they aimed different lights at the chakras of my dog, and they provoked a great amount of healing. We saw immediate results. Now, why isn't this technology in our hospitals?
yeah, yeah.
And if you want good meds, get to the vet section because they've got the they've got the same stuff overall, and it's all unadulterated. It's just not tampered with as much. They seem to have it a little better than us. But yeah, the cymatics and the sound is quite curious, and I think it is a big piece of the puzzle. And when our sound has been altered, I believe. I've been looking at David Ewing Jr.'s work, and one of the topics that he touches on is language. And he's talking about the Quran and how there's only 400 words in the Quran. I find that quite interesting. And there's
Wow.
certain words that are not found in there, like Hebrew and Jerusalem and things like that. So I find it kind of a curious topic. But what David Ewing Jr. has discovered is that everywhere our language has been altered. And I find that, and he can show us and exactly what he's trying to show us. He can demonstrate that quite easily. And we are here in Canada witnessing that as there is some of the land claims here from our native community, they're being settled supposedly. And so they're renaming rivers and bridges and lakes and places, and they're using names that are unfamiliar to anyone. This has not been a part of our language. This is like a new language that we're being introduced to that no one can speak yet. And so I find that interesting. And something else that I've heard from a lady named Laurel Erica, she's quite an interesting wordsmith, and she talks about how language is using us. And I would have to agree, especially when you look at cursive writing.
Uh,
And when you do look at our belief systems and how our thoughts can be so repetitive and energetic. And over the last few years, I think a lot of us have had to learn how to manage those energetic thoughts that can really dominate a person's experience. what thoughts do you want to give energy to? So, and as she says, the language is using us. So I do think that there's a big piece of that puzzle with the word and the tone, sword and the stone, and what Pete's working on with sound technology. I think it's
And
all relevant.
he's got this thing about angels and the fallen angels being fallen angles and how the tone is bent, and that's why the angle is bent, like the ANGEL, the the guard, the EL is bent. The L performs a bent, and
Like a
he
prism effect. Like
prism,
the
like
light, the
a
light is hitting here, but then
reflected,
it's being reflected somewhere else.
exactly, just like the
Yeah.
dark side of the moon stuff, you know.
Yes.
And then we did this whole discussion about life, the word life, and life being lie, thigh. And if you take the FI and make it PHI, and then you've got wife, which and you've got Wi-Fi, which is a Wi-Fi, a PHI again, and the PHI is the golden ratio, which is the perfect balance, but it's all reflection. It comes out of reflection. The Wi-Fi is reflection. And then you and I went on to talk about the pathos in that, the empathy,
The pathology, the path, the belief.
the middle path, the operating system, the middle path, the necessity for us to not bend one way or the other, but to actually have our own like sense of self and walk the middle path through the middle of this. So it's not necessary for us to adjust or change anything outside of ourselves. It's not necessary for us to tell another person off or get up another person or try to control another person. It's actually in ourselves that we should be doing that. It's the change should be coming from within. We should be walking away and thinking, right, well, how do I change that within me? So
Why am I being shown? What is the lesson that I'm being asked to learn? Why is this in my pop-up world? What have I done to manifest this? Is this something that I'm wise to be involved with? And trusting your instincts in every moment. There are times you might find yourself taking action where you wouldn't have imagined yourself taking action. So just following your instincts in every moment. You might think you're going to turn left up ahead, but then you get this little whisper that says, no, turn right. All right, then I'm going to do it. What's over here? Staying curious, open, and being in each moment, not being so certain about anything. Yes, it's at this time important for us to keep time, but for how long, I don't know.
and then you and I had a little bit of a talk about Elon Musk and that name. Elon is, if you jumble about the letters, you've got no EL,
Yes,
you've got no God, you know,
yes.
like I have often looked at, I've never actually really seen him very much because I don't actually follow him very much. So he's just like, maybe watched like 3 videos on him in my whole life, maybe
Likewise. But he
maybe,
does look kind of robotic to me.
yeah,
He
that's
looks
what
a
I was
little
gonna say.
plastic. He
No
looks a little
EL.
plastic, and he already
So
looks AI.
so he
No
could,
L, no
yeah,
light,
no
no
light,
electricity.
no
And,
EL.
L, electricity is God,
And then I
the
got
L.
And then I woke up in the morning going, Noel, Noel. I'm not going to sing a terrible voice, right? Noel, Noel. And I'm thinking, wow, like we've been projecting this onto Christmas for the last God knows how long without any thought about what that word actually means.
What are we actually
No
chanting?
soul,
What are we
no
chanting?
soul,
What are we
no soul, no soul.
participating?
What are we what are we doing? Okay, so so the last thing I really wanted to talk about was something that I put to you this morning. Is somebody else's work, but I don't know who said it, and I didn't write down the source, unfortunately. But what he was talking about was he's talking about ADHD.
Mm.
And what he said, and I thought this is brilliant, so I wrote it down, is it's not that they can't pay attention, it's that they have a hypersensitivity to boredom. They're actually really gifted. People with ADHD are really gifted people because when they find things that they are interested in, they can focus so much better than anybody else can on something, and they can do so much more with it because they've got the energy to then put that aspect into action through their focus. So it's like a hyper focus rather than a disability. It's actually, if they find the right channel for it, it's like a huge advantage, especially in this world of massive amount of information crossing through our space. We're just processing so much information now that we weren't 20 years ago, 30
I
years,
agree.
40 years ago. We just weren't processing it. So I just thought that
I
was really
agree. I think
interesting.
it's very hard for ADHD people to stay on task, on schedule, and to do the mundane. I think that there's an I don't want to do what you want to do element to it. There's an I don't want to do what you want to do. I want to do what I want to do. And it's a lack of freedom to make the choice to create or have, high value meals or opposed to going through a drive-through or something like that. It's about taking control of their lives. And I feel that a lot of the labels that we use to describe certain groups are used to describe some of the most brilliant among us. And there's certain groups that are nonverbal now. And I think part of it is that they're just tired of saying, you're not listening. I don't
Mm,
want to do what you want me to do. I want to do what I want to do.
mm, mm.
So I think it's a bit of an active esoteric rebellion, if you will.
And I'll
You
go
know,
back to one of my favorite sayings of all time, which is, what's important to me is not important to you.
correct. And that's why it's important for us to become, authentic and unfuckwithable and set those strong boundaries and decide what is right for us and not give too much control to anything or anyone else. Whether it be the black scrying mirror, you know, everybody's got one mirror, mirror on the wall. Tell me all. Tell me everything you think I want to know.
And
And it
how much is it
listens
lying to
to our
you?
thoughts. It's lying to me all the time.
Yeah. And
It's
then and
it's very misleading.
and then you've got these new things in the mirror that say, let's fact check this.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
makes
what a joke. What a
it's the very
joke that's been.
people that are making the lie that are making the fact checkers. It's the same people, it's the same crowd.
It's the same crowd. It's the same thing. Yeah, no, I agree. It's us. It's
Uh,
us. We manifest more rules. We manifest less fun. I think it's so important for us to learn to be playful again and to really raise the vibe and learn to laugh and sing and dance and do things that really light us up. Even if it's watching other people do those things, give yourself your heart's desire for as much as you possibly can. Be with other people that are like-minded and what wish to enhance those energies. Those are the energies we want to build upon.
that's something that Pete and I worked on for a lot of years, was um, when things were going really bad for ourselves. And this is I've known him over 20 years over the computer. I've never actually met the man, but he's been my friend for 20 years. And when things during that last 20 years were going really bad, we learned to shift our focus, take it and shift our focus into creative mode.
Yes.
So go off and draw something, go off and paint something, go off and sing something, go off and dance, or go off and shift your process by taking yourself into creativity. If you get dense, then shift your focus, move it, because it was the only way that in the long term that we discovered that we could life could be manageable, or not manageable, as in it's not us that's we're not controlling our lives. We're allowing, we've got a rudder there, and we're allowing things to happen to us without denying them happening. Because if we start denying them happening or start shutting the door before we've even experienced them, then that can be deemed as fear.
Oh yeah, and a bit, you don't want to be too detached from reality. I mean, reality cannot always, it's not always easy. We have challenges and opportunities though. With every challenge comes an opportunity. So it's important for us to decide, what do I want to focus my energy on in those challenging moments, especially because the challenges can really destroy.
I just had a thought there while I was talking that I got stuck on, which was the word fear and then the word sphere. Like if you think of sphere, it's a vortex.
Fear. Hmm.
A sphere is vortex shaped, isn't it?
Correct.
Or is a sphere just a round cylinder?
To me, a sphere is it's a round ball. It's a crystal ball.
Sphere.
A sphere. It's like a bubble. It's my auric field. It's the big
Oh
apple,
yeah, yeah.
because the apple core to me sort of represents the auric field. It's the energy that flows up through the middle. So if you were to eat the outside of the apple and have the core, that's the shape of the torus field. The energy flows up through the middle, the holy of holies, and out through the fontanelle, the soft spot on an infant. This is where the spirit, I believe, enters the human body.
Wow. And then it says here, formerly a sphere is a set of points that are all the same distance from a given point in a three-dimensional space. So it creates a ball, basically. Sphere is a
Yes.
ball. Okay. It's not just thinking of the word sphere and fear, how similar they are.
They are very similar, but when you think of a circle, I think of I think of pure potential. I think of the Fool card. I think of, anything goes. It's up to us to create from the nothing, the zero.
Mm. 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 You just came back. What happened there? You turned the light on.
I had a light bulb moment.
Very reflective. Very good. You get darker and darker and darker and darker. I thought she was going to turn into some sort of thing in the next 10 minutes because
Well, the sun has really vanished, but thank you, Dean. You can see that it was getting a little dim in this room.
that was funny.
It was good
All right.
timing.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about on this one? Or
Well, there's a lot of astrological, I think, things worth pointing out right now, but
okay, go for it.
just the Lionsgate. We've got lots coming up right now. There's a super, excuse me, super moons coming up, meaning that there's an extra moon in the month. And so just big energy, I think. And Leo itself, we've just moved into the sign of Leo. And so what will that bring? Recently, we had a yod, which is a finger of God, they call it. And it was pointing 30 degrees or so at Leo. And so I felt like there was a big expression of energy that was coming from the heart. And this was recently. And so it's very important for us to not detach from those messages, whether they be dark or light, but just to become curious with them. Well, what is it that you want to tell me? So yeah, we can distract ourselves from the challenges. That's not going to take it away. There's only so much we can do. Is there anything else I can do to mitigate this challenge at this moment? No? Well, then get moving doing something else. There's no point in giving my thought energy to something that I've absolutely done everything I can. I physically cannot do anything else to change the situation, right? So it is important to shift the thoughts to creation mode and create and not dwell in the things that you can no longer control, shift, change. You know, it's important for us to accept what is. You know, sometimes we spill things, sometimes we drop the ball. So that happens, life happens. And it's just important that we become kind of neutral about it and observer and say, okay, well, now what? Like you're saying, shift into that other position. It's available always.
It's sometimes hard to know how to break the cycle, though. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're doing something that, hmm,
No, a lot of artists, Kim, sorry to jump in, but a lot of artists say that they create when they're in a sad place or in a challenging place. It's because of these challenges that we do shift and change and grow.
mhm,
With every challenge comes an opportunity. It's
mhm,
up to us to seize it and
mhm.
say, right, what will I make of this?
Remember that movie? Do you ever see that movie done by Elton John, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting?
I think I did a
Which
long
is
time ago.
his life story, and it shows how really his creativity. I mean, he was a savant anyway. He could play the piano as a young child at a very, very good level. You know, like he was a savant as a child, but he wanted his dad to notice him. That was his primary thing. He wanted to perform for his dad, but his dad was always away or not there, and then it became a stronger and stronger and stronger desire for him. But I think that that demonstrates beautifully how those gifts come out for that purpose, that you're presented with, you're born into this particular description of this particular world, and how those, if it hadn't been for that set of scenarios, the force may not have been there to propel him forwards or to push it or to, because he had that strong desire for his father to notice him. And it comes through very, very clearly in that movie that was, or for me, it came through very clearly that that's what he was. I mean, I had a lot of thoughts about that movie that were much deeper than that. Um, and it's got to do with him being gay and the reasons that he became gay. But I can't really talk about them because they're actually quite rude and they
Oh,
may not be relevant. But if you just think along the lines, if you watch the movie, if you want to watch the movie, if you think along the lines of why he was giving his power away, it might give you some revelation into, in his particular example, why he became gay,
hmm.
because he was giving his power away for a particular reason to be noticed.
Well, and the person that he wanted the attention from, you know, that person now has an opportunity to notice and say, well, this person has a problem or a challenge, or this person has an opportunity and a gift. And it's all about that person's storytelling. And back to the seven dwarfs for a minute and the number of creation. Like, make no mistake, they did it before when they created these movies. Seven is all about the number of creation. And what was that old witch doing when she was looking into the scrying mirror? Mirror, mirror on the wall. What was she looking at? What was she was remember she was seeing Snow White eat the apple. She was seeing what
Mm-hmm,
the others were doing or what they
mm-hmm,
might do. She
mm-hmm,
was visualizing,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Looking into
mm-hmm,
her magic mirror.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Exactly.
She was casting spells, creating,
Yeah,
visualizing,
yeah,
you know. Might
yeah.
be good if some people don't start doing this, but I think it might be great if some of us did and really put our heart energy into creating what we do want, because I think that we could eradicate. I think that overwhelmingly human beings are sentient, gentle creatures, and that, you know, there are a few idiots among us, but overwhelmingly we outnumber them. I have a great amount of faith in humanity.
That's good. I'm pleased you do.
I do. I think that there's really great people in the world, and
But that's because it's a reflection, Ginger.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I do appreciate what you're saying because I preach that all the time. I speak it all the time.
That's the reason there are some really great people in the world.
Uh, well, I guess we have to call them out, right? We have to call them forward, and I'm grateful to be among so many, like truly. But you know, if we're having challenges, I guess it's something that we've brought with us, and it's important for us to identify those energies and do our best to transmute them, eradicate them,
Mm.
become what it is that we desire.
Mm.
Who says wealth has anything to do with it? I think a lot of people immediately go to manifesting money, but who says wealth has anything to do with it? Who says it's not just a state of mind, a state of being? Like I know people that have absolutely nothing but joy. You know, it's a choice that we can make with or without the financial abundance.
I,
Like
I,
it's still a
I
choice
was
that we can make.
I was trying to give somebody an example about how else their world could change overnight, like the other day, right? And it's just
Hmm.
saying to them that essentially, if they, and we were talking about owning the house, right? Owning a house outright, right? So you go from being a renter to owning a house outright without winning the lotto. How is that even possible, right? And you go, well, okay, go out the front door, and a 747 flies over my head really low, right? And a suitcase falls out of the aeroplane, and it happens to have $2 million in it, right? But the plane crashes over there, and nobody ever knew that that $2 million was in that suitcase, or that
Oh
that
no.
suitcase survived the crash. But it happened to land on your feet in front of you, right? So you go, oh, that's interesting. There's $2 million that nobody knows. Is it? I mean, it's a real shame that 400 people had to die behind me, but that's beside the point. Who do I give the money to? Who do I give the money back to? Because they've all
How do I
obviously gone.
manage this now? This newfound abundance. How did I create this in my pop-up world?
But it's just showing it an extreme example of how something could happen, could be devastating. But at the
Correct.
same time, like, how do you deal with that?
How
Oh
do
my
you deal with
goodness, I've
that?
got $2 million that nobody knows was ever in existence. And obviously, I can't go to the airport authority and say, well, there was $2 million on that plane and the suitcase fell out and it landed at my feet. And well, there would be no point in doing that because they'd just say, well, that's ours.
Why are we asking permission? Who gave them the authority? The person that found the 2 million gave away their authority.
Yeah, I gave away their
It's
authority
really
through,
about us keeping our authority and staying in our comfort zone, guiding ourselves, using our own instincts. We've got it.
yeah, and not feeling
Giving,
bad about the things that we don't need to feel bad about because we're actually giving the authority away by handing
correct.
that money over to the authority that will not necessarily do the right thing with that
What
$2 million.
are they going to do with it? That's right.
You might be better off creating I don't know, a charity for the people that suffer, the relatives that suffered in the plane crash or something. You know what I mean? Like, uh, it's just a daft example. But I was just saying that how, um, in order to change shift our path or move ourselves forward from the frustrated state that we're in into a different state, that anything can happen if we
Yes,
just take away that limitation or we take away that focus. You get, I mean, this question of like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? Let go. Don't
correct.
bother thinking about how you're going to do it. Just see yourself in that scenario. Let it come
It's
about.
already done. It's
Let it
already done.
let it come about, and let it come about however it will. It doesn't
If
have
it's
to
meant for me,
be.
it will be mine,
Yeah.
right? If
I
it's
mean,
meant for me, it'll be mine. And I do think it's important for us to ask, and that's what I guess I'm suggesting when I say visualize it. Imagine at the very least best possible outcome. You don't have to know what that is, but
no.
at least put it to words or try to imagine what it might feel like. If you can't see it, maybe you can feel it.
So, is there anything else you want to talk about before I cut you off?
I think we're, I can't think of anything else, Kim.
Okay.
I
All
do
right.
think it's an inside job, an insight job, though. I think that's especially in this North Node Aries.
If anybody's got anything to say about anything that we talked about today, we love hearing from you. We love your comments. We love your insights. We love to interact with you. We appreciate you watching our channel, and we're going to try and get together more often than we have been, because we haven't done this for 3 weeks, but it's just schedule wise. Ginger lives in Canada. I live in Australia, and both of us are working at extreme ops. So basically, when she's off, I'm on, and when I'm off, she's on, or sleeping. And it's
But we did it today,
we did.
and we'll figure it out.
We will.
So we will find a way,
Okay.
and we'll talk again soon. And yeah, I enjoyed the comments too, Kim. I'm always curious to hear, from people that might like to have a conversation with us. And we've been trying to look for ways to, include more people in these chats.
Yeah.
And just reminding people that we are open to that if you want to participate.
Right.
And also that what was I going to say? Something about the comments again. Just that we're very grateful. Oh, if you had any questions, if there's anything that you'd like to hear more about, let's go. Let's hear what there is out there that's on your minds. We're
Yep.
very curious. Yeah.
Okay.
Interested in knowing what's going on for everybody else.
So you guys take care. Thanks, Ginger. That was great. Okay.
Thank you.
See ya.
That was a lot of fun.
It was
Bye for
good.
now.
Bye.